Welcome back to the discussion, Modernizing Today's Federal IT to Increase Productivity and Reduce Cost, sponsored by Pega on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. My guest today is Cynthia Stubner, Defense Director and Industry Principal, Pega Systems. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy. Well, when you think about a no-code platform and traditional way software has been developed, can this innovation, can this no-code system actually save me money? Can it save money for our federal listeners?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can, John. In fact, more than 75% of government IT today is really spent maintaining existing software. So that's not software that is trying to do something new or trying to accomplish something new. It's just to maintain systems that in some respect have been around since the 1950s. And quite frankly, well before citizens that you and I are who do banking online and want to engage with their phone or whatever digital device they currently have. Updating those applications is bigger than a transformation. It's such a huge, heavy lift, but transformation can be very risky. And when you're talking about legacy systems with data that can have privacy rules around it or very sensitive nature, it's important to understand that how you do that transition can actually really affect what's going on with the government. More importantly, it can really affect how you change the way the government is doing their own business. And Pega's platform, one of the best things about our platform is that you do not have to rip out and replace a legacy system in order to leverage our software to make your engagement with the citizen better and more fruitful. In fact, what we've done at the Veterans Affairs Financial Services Center is build an application called Invoice Payment and Processing, which allows for a unified online invoice certification system that the VA's Financial Services Center uses to process all payments on behalf of the medical facilities nationwide. This system has led to a timeliness of vendor payments of nearly 100% while reducing invoice processing by 33%. The VA has the second largest invoice processing system in the federal government and processes $14 billion worth of invoices annually. That's not only time, but money.
In the world of software development, changing new systems, I always talk about iteration and iterate this. So how does your system impact the iterative approach to software development?
The nice thing about our system is it's built with flexibility in mind. So as you take a look at modernizing a certain set of processes, you lay that platform out above those legacy systems. As you iterate and change what the process is trying to accomplish, our software can, with the no-code approach, help you adjust and move software through a drag and drop approach and a useful wizard to really change that process if necessary, change your interfaces if necessary, or change the interface to an underlying legacy system that gets retired over time. So you're not locked in, but more importantly, you have the flexibility to move around as your organization changes, no matter what the underlying legacy systems are.
A lot of people are not comfortable with the lift and shift approach. It looks like your system may allow to make a transition that is not shocking to the end user, where the UIX can be improved while relying on the back end of one system and making the transition make it easier. It's difficult just to transition that way. In fact, the word I use all the time is suffering from the cost of existing development. 75% is spent on that, and that's not making any progress at all.
No, not at all. In fact, what we're finding around the globe, not only here in the United States, but worldwide, is governments realizing that the heavy burden of that maintenance of software systems is really crippling their budget, especially from an IT standpoint. And when you have the pressure of citizens who want to engage with their government agency, just like they engage with their service providers, banks or claims processing, it's really incumbent upon the governments to take that leap and move forward with modernization to over time deprecate that 75% spend on IT and really focus on the core missions that the governments are there to support the citizens.
I'm going to use an emotional word here. The word is automation, and some people run from that word, some people embrace it. It's difficult, especially when you have an environment with mixed systems, open source, and in the federal government, look at the VA. That has to be locked down and secure, especially with personal information. So how does automation fit in with a approach like no-code?
Well, automation for automation's sake isn't really what is progress, in my opinion. The way that Pega looks at automation is we take a look at what you're trying to accomplish from. We take a look at what outcomes you're trying to accomplish. We take a look at what your current environment and processes are. And then we figure out what is the best approach to move forward with our platform as your overarching layer that helps to modernize and touch points, helps to modernize and engage touch points across the system. So really what you're looking at doing is not only automating what you were doing, but helping to automate what you may be doing in the future. And really it's about designing a process that you can then automate using the software so that your employees can engage with their stakeholders and citizens in a more effective and mission-oriented approach.
When you deal with teenagers, you deal with unintended consequences for certain things that happen. But it looks like you have a no-code platform that can allow for flexibility, but I think the unintended consequence is that it could have impact in the world of HR, can't it? I mean, all of a sudden, you can bring people into your organization that not necessarily have 4 years of coding training. So it gives flexibility as far as just different types of people involved in the system.
Absolutely. The great thing is that with no code, the business user becomes the driver of the requirements and also the builder of the system. So it empowers those business users, the people that know the mission best. In the traditional software development environment, you often used to put together a list of requirements based upon what users would want. Those requirements would then be thrown over the fence, so to speak, and given to computer scientist geniuses, quite frankly, but people who did not understand the environment in which they were building software to work. And they would come back with some software, and the users would take a look at it, and they would say, well, it works for this, but it doesn't work for that. And that was a back and forth iterative process that often took a lot of time, spent a great deal of money, and the end result was not exactly what anybody was looking for. The great thing about no code is that the business and IT work together to come up with the outcome that they choose, and really boils down to simply a user has built the software they plan to use.
In the early days of agile software development, they talked about a software developer actually sitting down with an end user and coming back with requirements, going back and forth. Well, this is not binary anymore, is it? No. It's like, okay, if the end user himself can't communicate what he needs, he can or she can actually see what they need, and all of a sudden that eliminates the step of communication, because that whole idea of gathering requirements can be done in an error-filled manner.
Absolutely. It's one of the best things about making software development not only more accurate, but more efficient. It's a little bit, if you think about it from the standpoint of, we used to go to the car dealership and buy a car, whatever was on the lot. Now you configure the car that you want, you order it online, and you go pick it up. This is an acceleration of how you purchase a car today, and no code is an acceleration of how you build software for tomorrow.
I deal with a lot of people involved with launching rockets and satellites, and their concept of an accurate number is way different from my concept of an accurate number. Yes. And when they talk about accuracy, so even if a person gathering requirements would write down accurate number, it could mean two different things for two different people. For the end user, the line of business, versus a software developer, and you'd have a delay in the software project because of that understanding.
Exactly. There's a translation error, is the way I used to always like to describe it. And the truth is that we can say the same thing, but we can mean two different things. With our software and our no-code platform, you map out a process, and all of the users, the stakeholders, which includes IT, are sitting there at the same time. So you get the definitions down pat so that everyone's clear on exactly what you're trying to accomplish before you press the button to hit the code and write it.
So instead of developer and user, maybe your split is back office and front office, Tat? Is that a split for you?
That is a good way to think about it, really, because what you're trying to accomplish is users are usually front office people. Back office tends to be a software developer or some sort of IT provider, and what you're really trying to do is bring those two people together, so you're unifying the front and the back office and making it one environment that builds the software that everybody can use.
So there's not going to be a disconnect between software developers and finance people, or software developers and the actual end users, or even the HR people.
No, they sit at the same table.
That's good. That's best way to do it to save money. My guest today is Cynthia Stubner, Defense Director and Industry Principal, Pega Systems. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, Modernizing Today's Federal IT to Increase Productivity and Reduce Costs, sponsored by Pega on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network.